My book, To a Mountain on Tibet, was the account of a journey to Mount Kailash on foot. And this, of course, is a sacred mountain, sacred to about a fifth of humankind, Buddhists and Hindus alike. But my journey was that of a rather agnostic Westerner, but one who was in mourning for the death of the last of his family. So it was, in a sense, a spiritual journey to a mountain of great beauty and strangeness. And so it's the short account of that journey. I think I wasn't following the conventional Indian route, which is a bit more to the west. I was walking up the Karnali River, which is the highest source of the Ganges. And there you go over the Tibetan border at about 13,000 feet. And it's a trek, really, that a handful of Westerners take, some Hindus, but very few. I don't know. I think it is arduous, but the real arduousness comes on Mount Kailash itself. Of course, the mountain has never been climbed. You're not climbing it, you're circling it. But you still get up to 18,600 feet. And so the air is very thin, altitude sickness threatens, you get tired, and you never know when altitude sickness may hit. Mountain sickness is no respecter of age, gender, fitness, anything, so you never know when it may hit you. And there's nothing to do about it if it does. You simply have to come back. And to come back after trying to circumvent Mount Kailash will be the most depressing thing, because it's only by circling it that your pilgrimage is supposed to be complete. The whole journey took very short time by my standards. My journeys often take months and months. This entire journey only took about 3 weeks, and the walking around the mountain was just 3 to 4 days. It's 33 miles around, but it's at such a height that you can't go very fast unless you're a Tibetan with their lungs. They get around in 36 hours. But most Hindus and most Westerners will take probably 3 or 4 days if they get round at all. Some people simply can't manage it. It's too taxing, and they will come back the way they came, which is very sad. I can't say I started the journey in a spiritual mindset. I started it in mourning for the death of my mother, and my father was dead, my sister was dead, and I wanted in some way to mark it. And being agnostic, I didn't want to go to Jerusalem, say, as a Christian might, or to Santiago de Compostela. I wanted to go to a mountain that was just a beautiful object of worship in the landscape for me, and to see what happened, as it were, in me. So it was in that sort of spirit that I went, not expecting some great conversion or epiphany. I didn't have one, but a way of marking something, like the death of somebody you love. You don't want to go on with your life in the normal way. You want to, or I did, I wanted to mark it by doing something specific and different, and perhaps shedding some of the normal impedimenta that we carry around in our lives all the time. You know, your personal relationships, your material worries, all these things disappear. You're alone, you have your little rucksack, you're out of communication with everybody. I was with all my home, and this is cleansing in a way. Yes, I can't say that I set out specifically to achieve anything. I was more seeing what would happen. And I was asked recently whether I had an immediate feeling of release or catharsis or epiphany. And I can't say that happened, but I realized later that it was a time of stillness and of coming to terms with things. In a way that I hadn't necessarily expected at all. I didn't know what was going to come out of this journey. In Kailash itself, you mean? Or,
Tibet, Kailash, the regions you covered?
The regions I have covered have very much changed in the lifetime that I've spent in covering them. Tibet, of course, has become increasingly under the sway of communism. China, when I first went there, which was not that long ago, it was just after the Cultural Revolution in the 1980s, there wasn't such a thing as a privately owned car, and now the streets are jammed. It's had a complete revolution in that way. Russia, of course, has ceased to be the Soviet Union, which it was when I first went, and has become something like a freer, much freer country, whatever the restrictions. So all these changes have taken place, which on the surface seem to be enormous. But what has always interested me in traveling is the culture that underlies it, the way people are thinking, what they value. And those have not necessarily changed so much. So under the surface westernization of so many cultures, there lies something that is very much particular to themselves. And I have to like that. I think what got me into travel was a fascination with difference, with abroad. I tended to think that home was boring and abroad was wonderful. And I always had a tremendous curiosity, a rather romantic curiosity initially, about what was abroad. And it started first with those old Arab cities of Damascus and Aleppo, where you walk along mud-lined streets. There's hardly anything to see. Somebody leaves a door open, you look in, you see lemon trees and a marble-paved courtyard. I felt I didn't understand anything. I didn't even know what a mosque was when I first traveled in Syria. And there was an intense curiosity about it. And that brewed up in me for years. The feeling that what I was approaching was something I didn't understand, I didn't know. And in later books, when I was traveling in much bigger and many ways more demanding areas like the old Soviet Union and China, it was that journeys were always those of ignorance. I felt I was traveling towards some sort of understanding through encounters with people, even encounters with landscape and history. So they're not books that say, this is the culture, I know, I'm telling you. They're more stories of my journey, my understanding when it comes, sometimes my mistakes. So they're journeys into some sort of understanding of a country that to begin with I didn't feel I knew at all. I try if possible to stay with the poorer class. I think I have an instinct, like many, that the heart of a country lies with its sort of urban proletariat, if you like, with its workers, with its farmers and its poorer workers out in the countryside. I think it's partly that these people are the harder to make contact with because they don't speak English. I've always tried to learn the languages of the country I've been in, which has meant a lifelong struggle with Russian and Mandarin. But that always seems to be the triumph for me, is to speak to not to people with a sort of urban sensibility more like my own, but to people with a certain world, probably even now a rather enclosed world of a country that is on the whole alien to me, and this is its most alien manifestation, is in the people, the country people who are so little, or at least as little touched by westernization as it's possible to be. It's been comparatively easy to meet middle-class people. I even have the occasional contact given me from England. The challenge is always to meet the others. It's a hard question. I don't know what I would expect a reader to take away from it. They might be a little baffled. Some readers might hope that I was going to describe a conversion to Buddhism, say, which didn't happen, and I didn't expect it to happen. I think it's only that I would hope they'd take away simply the account of the narrative of somebody who was sympathetic to where he was and alert to his own inner feelings. I can't say it would give the reader anything more specific than that.